Hello, ghouls, and welcome to Brave the Basement. I'm your host, Ghoul the Rules.
I'm your co-host, Black One Jack 2.
If you enjoy getting a little scared, ghost stories, haunted houses, a believer in the supernatural, or maybe even a skeptic when to look at things from a different perspective, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is sponsored by Ed's Barbershop. Ed's Barbershop is located at 210 Lane Street in North Judson, Indiana. So if you enjoy getting your hair cut from a hometown barber with that old-fashioned feel, then dial 574-896-3344 and schedule your appointment today. Hey, Blackjack, how's it going?
Okay, so I listened to the last episode, and someone won our 20th episode special.
Yes.
And our special is going to be Haunted Universities.
Yes.
I really quickly want to shout out a college, Bethel College. I took a trip to Bethel, and that's why I was gone. And there was some rumors about one of the dorms where we were staying at. And the rumor was that since this place was older, the elevators weren't working right. People have heard there was like noises coming from the hallways. And I thought that was really cool being gone. I was there for about a week. I wasn't in that dorm, but it was definitely cool to be hearing that.
So today's episode, we're going to be talking about ghosts of Gettysburg. So as everyone knows, Gettysburg was the battleground of a very famous battle during the Civil War. I'm going to give you some brief history. I won't go too deep into the history of Gettysburg because I think a lot of people know it, but it does help to have that history in the context of what we'll be discussing today. So the Battle of Gettysburg was fought July 1st through 3rd, 1863, in and around the town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, by Union and Confederate forces during the American Civil War. The battle involved the largest number of casualties of the entire war and is often described as the war's turning point due to the Union's decisive victory in concurrence with the siege of Vicksburg. Union Major General George Meade's Army of the Potomac defeated attacks by Confederate General Robert E. Lee's Army of the Northern Virginia, halting Lee's invasion of the North. Elements of the two armies initially collided at Gettysburg on July 1st, 1863, as Lee urgently concentrated his forces there, his objective being to engage the Union Army and destroy it. Low ridges to the northwest of town were defended initially by a Union cavalry division under General John Buford, and soon reinforced with 2 corps of Union infantry. However, 2 large Confederate corps assaulted them from the northwest and north, collapsing the hastily developed Union lines, sending the defenders retreating through the streets of the town to the hills just to the south. On the second day of battle, most of the armies had assembled. The Union line was laid out in a defensive formation resembling a fishhook. In the late afternoon of July 2nd, Lee launched a heavy assault on the Union left flank, and fierce fighting raged at Little Round Top, the Wheatfield, Devil's Den, and the Peach Orchard. On the Union's right, Confederate demonstrations escalated into full-scale assaults on Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill. All across the battlefield, despite significant losses, the Union defenders held their lines. On the third day of battle, fighting resumed on Culp's Hill, and cavalry battles raged to the east and south, but the main event was a dramatic infantry assault by 12,500 Confederate against the center of the Union's line on Cemetery Ridge, known as Pickett's Charge. The charge was repelled by Union rifle and artillery fire at great loss to the Confederate Army. Lee led his army on a tortuous retreat back to Virginia. Between 46,000 and 51,000 soldiers from both armies were casualties in the 3-day battle, the most costly in U.S. history. On November 19th, President Lincoln used the dedication ceremony for the Gettysburg National Cemetery to honor the fallen Union soldiers and redefine the purpose of the war in his historic Gettysburg Address.
I love Gettysburg, especially I love history, and one of my favorite things is the Civil War. And I'm really glad that Ghoul Rules picked this topic for today's episode, because honestly, I mean, come on, we're dealing with ghosts, and 56,000, 46,000, that's almost 100,000 people dead. I mean, someone's got to be a ghost.
So, the Civil War was something I always enjoyed studying.
Same here.
And I believe you had the same 8th grade teacher that I had, and his name was Mr. Selge.
Shout out, we love you.
And and what's funny, and so this is the kind of teacher that almost every student that's ever had his class has that exact same reaction when we talk about him. And so the reason I want to talk about Mr. Selge today before I get into some more, because I got like 8 different locations in Gettysburg, talk a little bit about ghosts. We'll get into that in a minute. Mr. Selge, when he taught a classroom, he would dress up. So you would come in one day, and so when I was there in 8th grade, we went day by day through the Civil War, day by day. And you'd come in one day, he's in a Union outfit. You'd come in the next day, he's in a Confederate outfit. And these were historical time period accurate uniforms that he was wearing, because not only was he a history teacher, he was a war reenactor, and he was extras in many different history movies when it comes to war. And specifically in the movie Gettysburg, not only was he part of the reenacting to help film some of the scenes, but he also worked with the directors and the producers of those movies to make sure that there's some historical accuracy going on. And then in the movie Gods and Generals, he actually had a couple speaking lines in that movie. So it was pretty neat. And when you would go over a battle with him, now mind you, this is in the 90s, and when he conducted the class, and you were talking about a war, you talk about something historic, he would splice together VHS tapes from different scenes of movies that were historically accurate, and he would lay the whole thing out just like a story. So he would talk a little bit, and this happened, and that happened, and then he would show you maybe a 30-second to 2-minute video clip, and then he would talk some more. Then he'd be right ready for and the clips were edited in such a way it went right with his lesson plan. And then when you went and watched a battle, he would show, it would be spliced together movies, but all the historical accurate battles, and then he had 4 or 5 different stereos set up around his classroom with war sounds. And here he is dressed up like a Union soldier, and you're watching it on the screen, and you got surround sound going on, and he's jumping up and down with a saber in his hand. It was awesome.
When I had him, I was unfortunate not to do American history. We did more state history, which is American history, a little bit of state, but it wasn't like, a national thing. We also did we did more with the Spanish, with Christopher Columbus, Hernan Cortez, and the Aztecs, the Incas. But he everything that he mentioned, we still had.
So we get to Gettysburg in our history lesson. And he dedicated a whole portion of a class to talk about ghosts of the Civil War, and specifically ghosts of Gettysburg. And he told this story, and it's always stuck with me. He said that he was doing a reenactment of the third day, which is known as Pickett's Charge. Okay, and so if you've ever been to Gettysburg, which I have, and you stand there at the place where the Confederacy started Pickett's Charge, there is a woods right next to it. And so when the soldiers, before they lined up into formation, they went into the woods, and they were giving a speech, and they gave a rebel yell, and then they lined up in formation. And then Lee gave a speech, and then they proceeded to attack the Union. And, as we know, and as I read, the South was just absolutely, they were just chopped to bits during this Pickett's Charge. But one time while doing a reenactment, Mr. Selge said that they had all the war reenactors already lined up. They had came out of the woods and are already lined up. And they're getting ready to start the reenactment of that battle. And he said all of a sudden you could hear all this loud cheering and these rebel yells. And they were coming from the woods right next to him. Remember, they had already left the wood portion. They were all lined up, so there's nobody in the woods. And he was working, he was standing next to the security guard. And the security guard said, yeah, we hear that too. And Mr. Selge said that the hair on his arm just stood up because you could just hear all these voices. And he said everything got real silent and everybody witnessed this all at the same time.
I mean, it's just, honestly, you know what we should do on the bonus content or the bonus page or extra? I don't remember what the name. That old video of the rebel yell, the last veterans. You know.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, we're showing all those old Confederate veterans doing the rebel yell.
Just imagine that, but almost 40,000 of them.
Yeah, he said it was like the whole army was there in spirit giving this rebel yell. I can only imagine, we talk about paranormal experiences, but that's on a completely different scale. And like I said, I've been to Gettysburg twice. I think Blackjack, you went once as well.
Only been there once, yeah.
It is a very fascinating place to visit. I highly recommend going. You will not be disappointed. I didn't have any paranormal experiences while there.
But you can say you do feel that presence.
Oh, you could definitely feel that presence, yes.
You could feel someone's dead someone has died where I'm standing.
Well, that's the thing. My very first trip, I was in 6th grade. And at that time, I didn't study the Civil War at that point yet. And we were with tour guides, which Mr. Selge always led that trip. And looking back on it now, it's kind of ironic that we actually had tour guides because Mr. Selge would end up telling the tour guide stuff that they didn't know. And I remember there was this little creek, tiny little creek, and the tour guide said, anyone want to jump down on this rock? It's like a 2-foot drop. It's no big deal. And I said, I'll jump on the rock. And I jumped on the rock, and he pulled these pictures out of his pocket, and he handed one to me. And laying there was a dead Union soldier on that very rock that I was standing on. And it was a very surreal moment. But speaking of ghosts and people just visiting, a lot of people have had experiences with the paranormal at Gettysburg, and we're going to discuss a couple of them. One of the places on the actual battlefield is called the Devil's Den. Tour Devil's Den, the main stage for the Battle of Gettysburg, and you just might run into a friendly fella wearing a large floppy hat. That young fella generally helps tourists compose their perfect shot of the battlefield, even stepping in the frame for a photograph or two. As soon as the shutter snaps, he disappears and never appears in the photos. Don't be surprised, however, if your camera or smartphone mysteriously stop working or the fully charged batteries suddenly drain. A common paranormal occurrence at Devil's Den.
Okay, I don't remember. Devil's Den was the part of the second day, right? Right?
Yeah, it was mainly the second day.
Second day, with the...
Yeah, because the first day was the army's kind of showing up and the cavalry trying to hold back the Confederate soldiers. The second day was kind of like the big battle, and then the third day was mainly known for Pickett's charge. So now this one's interesting, and I didn't know this until I was looking up some paranormal things. So there's a woman named Jenny Wade, and her house in Gettysburg at 548 Baltimore Street is haunted. Often referred to as America's scariest haunted house, the Jenny Wade house is the site of the lone civilian death during the Battle of Gettysburg. Jenny Wade, who lived in the home, was hit by a stray bullet as she stood baking in her kitchen. Wade, who died on the battlefield's final day, is said to still roam the house along with several children. Visitors often hear loud bangs and the innocent voice of a young child, and feel sudden rushes of cold air when on the second floor of the house. Others tell of feeling the arms of the little children holding onto their legs. So Jenny was not a soldier at all. She was a civilian, and according to this, she was the only civilian casualty during that battle. Sachs Covered Bridge. Sachs Covered Bridge, a charming reminder of the Pennsylvania of yesteryear, may be one of the most haunted spots in Gettysburg. Crossed by the retreating Confederate Army, the bridge is also said to be the site of the public hanging of 3 Army deserters. Those who visit the bridge tell stories of seeing apparitions, smelling cigar smoke, hearing voices, and feeling a touch when no one is there. The Gettysburg Hotel. Several spirits continue to roam the Gettysburg Hotel, a hospital during the Civil War. Rachel, a nurse during the bloody days of the Battle of Gettysburg, has been known to wander the rooms, digging through guest drawers and luggage and pushing carts haphazardly around the hotel. A Union soldier who perished in the hospital is often seen wandering the hotel's halls.
I was going to say, I don't remember which hotel I stayed at, but I know I stayed at a hotel. So I don't remember which one it was, but I could have been in a haunted hotel.
No, that one was a modern hotel.
Okay.
That was a modern hotel. That was it.
Because I don't remember. How many hotels are in Gettysburg?
I have no idea. But so this one was designated as a hospital during the battle, as were a lot of places. And that was quite common during the Civil War to take over larger buildings and just make a makeshift hospital real quick. Gettysburg College, and that's located at 300 North Washington Street in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Gettysburg College served as a field hospital. So here we go, another hospital.
Haunted university.
For both sides during the Civil War, and as a result, has a storied history of hauntings. The most terrifying of those stories date back to early 20th century. 2 college employees entered an elevator, pushed a button for the desired floor, and waited. But the elevator malfunctioned, taking them straight to the basement. When the elevator doors opened, the woman saw a bloody Civil War operating room with doctors working feverishly to save injured and dying soldiers. As a doctor walked toward them, the elevator began to move to another floor. The 2 employees, accompanied by a security guard, returned to the basement minutes later to find nothing. So here's my question for you, Blackjack. If you get on an elevator and it takes you to the wrong floor, and it happens to be the basement floor, and you open it up to some crazy paranormal thing, and then all of a sudden the elevator door closes again, takes you somewhere else, are you going to go back and brave the basement?
No.
Yeah, me either. I thought that was a good question to ask.
Cupcakes.
Oh, cupcakes. Cupcakes will lure Blackjack back down to the basement.
Watch, it's like some ghost chef just has like cupcakes. I definitely would go back down. Fish.
So Farnsworth House Inn, 401 Baltimore Street in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The Farnsworth House Inn housed Confederate snipers during the Civil War and is the site from which the shot that killed Jenny Wade originated. Visitors to the charming bed and breakfast tell stories of hearing strange noises emanating from the attic and singing coming from the basement. Again, the basement.
The basement.
Tilly Pierce House Inn, 301 Baltimore Street, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Guests at Tilly Pierce House Inn frequently tell stories of waking up in their room after feeling a figure sitting on the edge of their bed staring at them. Others tell hearing strange noises and footsteps from an otherwise empty attic, while the apparition of soldiers have been seen wandering the halls. And finally is Dobbin House Tavern, 89 Starnware Avenue, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It always ends with the food. Have you noticed that? Dine at the Dobbin House Tavern, and you might just be served a sight of the paranormal. Formerly a stop on the Underground Railroad, the Dobbin House Tavern hosts the spirits of former slaves who have been seen meandering through the building, including in former hiding places. Blood splatters, according to local lore, also mysteriously appear and disappear on the floor throughout the tavern. So, as we mentioned, a lot of people died those 3 days. And a lot of people believe when you have a death that was before its time or before that person was ready to move on, that's when you'll start seeing some paranormal activity. And when you have that many people die in such a short time, I can only imagine the amount of spirits that are surrounding that battlefield.
I mean, come on. You got a name called the Devil's Den. I mean,
it does have its own spooky
it has its own
aura around it, doesn't it? So like I said, if you ever get a chance to go to Gettysburg, if you haven't been there, definitely check it out. Chances are low, depending. If you're just visiting the battlefield, chances are pretty low that you're going to have a paranormal experience. If you're looking for a paranormal experience at Gettysburg, check out that list that I just read off to you guys, and let us know if anything happens. If you would like to become a Brave the Basement Ghoul, be sure to share this show on social media. Go to bravethebasement.weebly.com and sign up for our newsletter to get all the latest news and updates when each episode has been posted. If you have a ghost story you would like to share with us, you can reach us at bravethebasement@gmail.com. Your story can make it on the show and be featured on the website. You can also submit your story on Reddit under the subreddit Brave the Basement or in the YouTube comment section. Or, if you don't like typing out your experiences, if you got some decent recording software or heck, even a voice memo on your cell phone, go ahead, tell the story in your own words, shoot it on over to us, and it could make it on the show. If you have an eerie ghost photo you would like to share, please email us and include a description, and your photo could be added to our photo gallery. And that brings us to the end. We hope that we brought you just a little fright. And remember, when you're up late at night and you hear something in the other room that just doesn't seem right, it's okay if you need to turn on the light to protect yourself from things that go bump in the night. I'm your host, Ghoul That Rules.
I'm your co-host, Black One Jack 2.
And I hope you join us again. Till next time.